Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Commissioner Look.
Here.
Commissioner West.
Here.
Commissioner Schulte. Commissioner Meisner.
Here.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reiner.
Not here.
All right, well, thank you. We note that 6 members are here. We're missing Commissioner Brasted today. We'll move on to item 4, tax claims and abatements. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Gamache and a second by Commissioner Look. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reiner.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
And that item passes. Next, we'll consider accepting the regular claims paid over $500 and purchase card claims paid for the period ending September 24th of 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner West. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Reinert. Is there further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reiner.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
And that item passes. Next, we'll move to item 6 on your agenda. We're looking for approval of the minutes from September 28th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Meisner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gamache. Any corrections or changes to the minutes as presented? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The minutes are adopted unanimously. Next, we'll move on to Chair's Remarks. We have one item for you today under Chair's Remarks, and it is the annual report from our Veterans Service Office. Anoka County is home to more than 21,000 veterans, the 4th highest in the state. Individuals who have served our country in the military have a variety of benefits for which they or their families might be eligible. Benefits such as a home loan and tuition reimbursement to VA healthcare. That's where our busy 5 county veteran service officers come in and serve as a one-stop shop and help them receive the benefits that they've earned. We're fortunate to have our director, John Kriesel, with us this morning. Welcome, John. Thank you for your service, and thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The mission of the Anoka County Veterans Service Office is to provide professional, caring, and quality assistance to veterans and their dependents in obtaining benefits through county, state, and federal programs. We provide professional, caring, and quality assistance to veterans and their dependents in obtaining benefits through county, state, and federal programs. As advocates, we work with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs, and nationally chartered veteran service organizations that we're accredited by through our national training. Our staff, we have 6 staff, 1 director, which is me, a veteran services coordinator, that's Tim Nelson. He is the director in my absence, but also works as a liaison between our office and the Anoka County Veterans Treatment Court, the homeless programs, the Housing Collaborative, other groups in the community. We have 3 assistant county veteran service officers and 1 administrative specialist. So there are 5 of us in the office that on a daily basis meet with veterans and dependents and survivors. As required by Minnesota statute, all county veteran service officers must be a veteran, and everyone, all of our CVSOs meet that requirement. Our staff is among the highest trained in the United States. We attend national training through the NACVSO, local training through MACVSO and Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs, and as always, we're very thankful to have the support of the board in going to those trainings, as they're critical to make sure that we're on top of our game and aware of any changes. The VA changes very often, very rapidly. This makes sure that we're ahead of the curve and aware of all of those new benefits available to our citizens. As I said, we maintain accreditation with NACVSO, American Legion, the DAV, VFW, VVA, among others. As the chair stated, we are the 4th highest population of veterans in the state of Minnesota. And just a quick overview of some of the benefits we provide. We help provide disability compensation for veterans that had injuries or disabilities as a result of their military service, whether it was direct service connections such as a knee injury or something on active duty that then they dealt with the rest of their life, or whether it was something that takes a while to manifest, such as disabilities as a result of Agent Orange exposure, which we see a large group visit our office for that. Veterans pension is for veterans who have disabilities that are not a result of military service. This a lot of times is towards the later stages of life, whether they're going in assisted living, nursing home, in-home care, and then survivors benefits, dependency indemnity compensation, which if a veteran dies of a service-connected disability, there is an amount that's available for the surviving spouse. On top of that, there are survivors' pension, which is similar to veterans' pension. And with both of those benefits, we work closely with the Human Services Division when they're meeting with clients to get them applying for medical assistance. They make sure that through our office first, we exhaust all avenues to make sure that they're getting their federal benefits first, which saves the county and the state dollars. Health and medical care, we help apply for VA Health. We're in a unique area where plenty go to Minneapolis and the Ramsey outpatient clinic, but there are a lot of veterans that do prefer to go to the St. Cloud VA Medical Center. So we help get them access to that, those benefits, education benefits, which we can help get some of their questions answered, but we work closely with Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs higher education program to help them get directly applied. They have a contact in all of the schools. Home loans, we can help get that eligibility certificate, burial. Short-term financial assistance, which this was critical last year, and I've got some numbers later in the presentation to show kind of the impact that COVID had on people in our community, but the State Department of Veterans Affairs had programs available to help offset some of those expenses that they had. If you see people driving around with the Minnesota license plates that say we support our troops, that goes into a fund that then Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs provides grants to certain counties and some of the short-term subsistence and assistance. Special needs grant is through that same program. Dental and optical assistance for veterans who are low income and low asset. And then we work closely with the Veterans Court. Tim Nelson's our liaison that helps make sure veterans that maybe have fallen through the cracks and then are meet up with our legal system, our justice system. Then there are support services through the VA to help them, whether it's chemical dependency or mental health conditions that might be related to service, to sort of treat the underlying issues and give them a second chance to get their life back on track. And that has been an amazing program, and we've seen lives be saved. Anoka County Human Services, as I stated before, we work closely with them to make sure we're leveraging these federal benefits to save local taxpayers' dollars. Anoka County Veterans Advisory Board, which, working with Commissioner Reinert, that looks to be, we'll be potentially changing the name on that. We're looking at some options there to be more welcoming to other stakeholders in the community. So it's not just a small group of people at these meetings. We want to have a large network to be able to make sure that we're taking care of as many people as possible that are in need. Our new up-and-coming item, the Digital Customer Connection. We're transitioning to a new public-facing appointment and check-in program called DCC. Veterans, dependents, and survivors will be able to schedule appointments with their service officers online using a web link or QR code that is on our website now. As we roll that out and people get more used to it, our plan, we will get into all of the American Legions and VFWs and have a QR code so someone can just take a photo and it will send them to the website and they can go ahead and schedule an appointment to meet in our office. We have a quarterly newsletter titled The Veterans Advocate. We created this back in 2014 to provide a way to disseminate information to all the local stakeholders, try to get the most information out there, spread that around those Legion posts and VFWs. And we post those on our website as well. Statistics from last year, we have 19,911 veterans residing in Anoka County. The benefits provided by the VA to residents of Anoka County, the VA in their fiscal year 20 summary of expenditures reports, $189.5 million were spent within Anoka County. So the services we provide help bring in disability compensation funds that people spend in the community and on their bills and whatnot, healthcare, education benefits, survivors benefits, pension. And then last year, the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs financial assistance provided to veterans residing in Anoka County was $258,000. So that included the COVID-19 grants, with which many people took up our offer on those. Any questions?
Well, thank you, John, for your hard work, and to all of our county veteran service officers for their dedication. We all owe you so much, and the neighbors who have served in the military. And Anoka County is fortunate to have committed, knowledgeable, and courteous staff working with our veterans, dependents, and survivors to improve their lives. I never had an opportunity to serve my country, and I'm very pleased to be in a county where so many men and women have stepped up to do just that. Are there any other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Meisner? Commissioner Reiner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation and your work of your whole team. So I did have one quick question about your advisory group. So a name change, but it also sounds like you're wanting to change the structure. And if you could just explain a little bit, but what you said, I definitely support in terms of a bigger network is always better, but if you could just elaborate a little bit.
Absolutely. So there's been discussion of a county yellow ribbon network. Currently, there's communities that are involved in the yellow ribbon program. This, if a county program starts, what it would do would facilitate sort of collaboration between all of the networks. And instead of having multiple extra meetings with different attendees, and we might have some that have been going to this one for a handful of years. This was created in March of 1981, the Veterans Advisory Board. And at that time, a commissioner would appoint one person from each of their districts to be on this. Mm-hmm. And it became just a small group. And what we need and what's important is to have as many people at the table as possible. And so over the years, it had transitioned into something else. This is more of a formality to clean up the language in county policy, but it would also, then the people that have been going to that one for many years would still want to go to this new one instead of going, oh, that doesn't apply to us. No, we want VFW's Legions, we want the yellow ribbon people, we want local businesses that want to support veterans at this. And that allows us to get the most information out to the public as possible, and the membership of those VFW posts and Legions and all of that.
Perfect, thank you.
You bet.
Commissioner Reiner?
Yeah, I've got a comment, but I'll elaborate a little bit on what John's been saying. We've been working together to make this change and expand the work. And so, yeah, advisory board before, the board was didn't advise, and they weren't really a board because they didn't have authority. So it was kind of misnamed from the beginning, but I think that was maybe 30 years ago that was formed. And so it's going to be a network now. And basically, like John said, bringing in other groups, and primarily the Yellow Ribbon Group is a big add there because what it's been up till now, and I think has been vets helping vets, and you bring in the Yellow Ribbon Network, and a lot of times that's citizens wanting to help vets and vets' families, and so by bringing them in, it's just a broader reach. People came to us looking for an Anoka County Yellow Ribbon Network. Well, that's not really a good idea because Yellow Ribbon Networks are very local and reach into the community. And so by bringing in those groups, then we really get that reach into the community and expand, I guess, all the offerings that the Veteran Services has to offer. So. And then I guess, and my comment that I was originally going to say, I think it deserves notice that, John, in his role, has really, and what I've noticed is he's really over time, really optimized and modernized how we're delivering these services. I think COVID probably brought in some of those things, but I do see that John's ability to take all technology and available resources for optimizing and modernizing and applying them to the services and the programs that he has out there. And so I just want a little kudos to you for doing that. I just see that you keep spending effort in going in that direction. It's really great.
Absolutely. Yeah, COVID definitely sped up that process. The VA did not, they were never ones to modernize. They were always changing but not getting more modern, and this forced them last year. Now we have a lot of options to do things electronically. It does save on mail and costs like that, but it speeds up the claims too. So if people are looking to get benefits faster, this is helping with that. So it's been, we've learned obviously we wish COVID never happened, but there are some benefits to it, and that definitely was so.
Well, thank you, John. You're a true asset to Anoka County, and your team works well. We're glad you're here, and we'll look forward to a report next year and maybe a couple of interim reports in between.
Sounds good, and thank you again for all of your support. We appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Well, that does conclude chair remarks. Let's go ahead and move into committee reports, and we'll start with the Management Committee report. I'll turn to Commissioner West.
Mr. Chairman, my items are all informational.
Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner West. We will then move to the Transportation Committee report, where, as you will note, all of my items are informational. So that concludes the Transportation report, and we'll move to the Internal Audit Committee report. Commissioner Look.
Mr. Chair, thank you. The Internal Audit Committee met on October 5th. Mine are all informational as well, but I'll just touch on the fact that we do internal audits, and this year, or this time, was for the Human Services Division. And again, kind of the goal is to see if there's any weaknesses that we may have that we can catch before the state auditor comes in, does an audit. And, you know, there's always things that are good to look at and sharpen up and try and make better, and I think that's what Chuck does. Thank you, Chuck, for your hard work on that. And we'll continue to try and do regular audits of various different divisions throughout the years to come. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Look. We will then turn to the Parks Committee report, where we actually have some action items.
Thank you,
Gamache.
Mr. Chair. Yes, we do. The Parks Committee met on Tuesday, October 5th. We were at the Coon Rapids Dam Regional Park Visitor Center. We have 3 action items. The committee recommended to the county board to award a contract for the Bunker Hills Activity Center roof replacement project to GV Builders, Inc. of Lakeville, Minnesota for a total contract amount of $242,800. That's contract C 0008858. This is the project that we received bonding money for. So we are moving forward with this project to get the roof replaced, and it's in need of replacement. So I'll move that one.
There's a motion before you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Reinert. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
That item passes.
The next item, Mr. Chair, is the committee recommended to the county board to ratify the fiscal year 2022 cross-country ski grant and aid agreement in the amount of $15,438 with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. This is contract C 0008856. You can see the beautiful shot of the winter Minnesota on your screen right there. This is something we do every year. In something that we're going to talk a little bit about under informational, we are looking for different possible ways of doing some of the cross-country skiing. We'll get mentioning that later. But this grant is for 2022 so that we can move forward with this program again at our different parks. That's at Bunker Hills, Coon Rapids Dam, Rum River Central, and Rice Creek Chain of Lakes. Those are the parks that we currently are doing trail grooming, and it gets a lot of people out cross-country skiing, and people enjoy it a lot. But this is the contract that we need with the state, the Department of Natural Resources to move that along.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Reinert. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner West. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte.
Aye. That item passes.
And sticking with winter, the committee recommends to the county board to ratify for fiscal 2022 the snowmobile grant and aid agreements with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. We have 3 contracts there, one for $18,724 with Kiwi Crossing Snowmobile Club, that's C 0008853. $22,258 with the Rice Creek Snowmobile Club, C 0008854, and the Rum River Snowmobile Club for $21,855. That's C 0008855. You can see the trails on your map up there on the right-hand side, and they do a great job, these different snowmobile clubs across the county, helping people get to other trails outside of the county. We have hookups up into Isanti and I think Chisago, and I believe one actually probably runs over to Washington, maybe two run over to Washington County. So it allows people to do some snowmobile riding all winter long, and we're excited to have these contracts again this year. And I'll move that.
There is a motion before you to approve all 3 contracts. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Look. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner.
Aye.
That item passes.
We had a couple informational items. We'll start first. We had a discussion about proposed 2022 fee adjustments for the Bunker Beach Water Park. And Jeff Perry, our director, is here, and he can go over a little bit about some of these fee adjustments that we're talking about. But mainly it was talking, if I remember correctly, we were talking about the passes and increasing some of those because of, well, for a number of different reasons, but I'll let Jeff kind of elaborate a little bit as to what staff had given us at that meeting. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jeff Perry, Park Director for Anoka County. And the proposal is to increase the annual season pass sales at Bunker Beach Water Park. We have 2 that we offer, one over 48 inches, that's any human being over 48 inches, and we have under 48-inch season pass as well. We're simply recommending a $10 increase for each of those annual passes. And the last time we did a fee recommendation and increase was back in 2016. We did a market analysis with 6 water parks across the metro area, and we feel that this is a reasonable increase that the public should be able to absorb. And we're looking forward to another busy water park season in 2022. So with that, Mr. Chair, that was our fee increase proposal.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, we expect again another busy summer, hopefully. We'll guess the weather will have something to do with it, but we didn't really get to use the heated pool as much as we would expected, but if it's cooler in June or later August, we'll be able to use that next year. We also had a discussion about reprogram concept for Banfield Tavern at Bonoman Park. That's a part of the Rice Creek West Regional Trail. And that helped us kind of lay out exactly what it is that we're thinking in the future. There's some opportunities for grants from the Met Council, and also because it is on the regional trail, we can now be up for some grants, possibly. So we wanted to look at that to see what ideas we could have. So we had a good discussion among the committee, and I think it went well. We'll see as things move along. We are going to be able to, as the Arts Center moves to their new facility, our contract runs through the end of the year, 2021, but we should have some time for them in case they need to keep some items there or while they're moving and getting settled into their new building. That shouldn't be a problem because we don't expect to have to really move things along in any direction, so we could have some space for them if they need to continue to keep some of their items at Banfield. But the conversation went very well, Mr. Chair. I think there's some questions.
Yes. Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and just to follow up with the Banfield Lock Center for the Arts and their transition, and again, just for discussion for the full board, my thing was just they've got a very ambitious plan. I'm sure that they will succeed in that, but as we all know, sometimes plans don't go according. And so for the board, just to be, as Commissioner Gamache said, just to be flexible and generous of whatever that transition looks like, because Banfield Lock Center for the Arts was a partner of ours and a tenant for 30 years. So it's not going to hinder anything. So just wanted to, again, reiterate that point, and especially going into the future, December's coming up really quick. So I just asked the full board, again, to be flexible and supportive. Thank you.
Back to you, Commissioner Gamache.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We also had a brief discussion, staff brought to us a possibility of discussing a new service delivery approach for the Anoka County Parks Department and our cross-country ski program. As we approved earlier, we are going out for the grant to get in 2022. But staff has come up with some ideas that might help us move into the future. We heard Mr. Kriesel talk about some of the changes going on in the veterans area, and we're always looking for things that make life easier and make programs better. So that was a great discussion. Really excited to see what the staff is going to come up with. They've got some great ideas, and I think we have a strong staff in that regard. So we'll see how that goes. But as far as that discussion goes, there's no changes for 2022. We'll stay the same as the program has been for all those who are out cross-country ski fans. But they expect changes maybe into the future as we have more discussions about that into 2022. And then finally, we also looked at some information that we've gathered on the Lake George Regional Park Master Plan. We had some public input there and a lot of public input, and I was really encouraged by that. We have that area that the YMCA had used for a number of years, and they are out of their contract, and it's now come back to the county, so we've talked about, okay, what can we do up at Lake George? And some of the residents have some great ideas, and we're gonna continue to work with them as we move forward on that. Finally, we did have some discussion about our legislative platform for the Parks Department, moving into the 2022 legislative session. We're looking forward to some items on that, and we'll have more discussion as we get closer to the 2022 session. And Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Gamache. And that brings us to agenda item 9, which is to consider approving an amendment to contract C0008548 with Wold Architects and Engineers of St. Paul for Phase 2 site plan design services related to the public safety and correctional facilities in an amount not to exceed $13,228,000 with a maximum reimbursable amount of $648,000. We have Corey Camp with us today from our Finance Division, and he'll walk us through a bit of this.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, Commissioners, my name is Corey Camp. I'm the Finance and Central Services Division Manager. As you recall, we did an RFP last year, and over the last 6 months, we've been working, Wold has been working with our staff in various areas, from corrections to the sheriff to 911, to develop some site plans, which was presented to the board on October 1st at a workshop. And so as we look to the next phase of this, phase 2, this allows us to move into starting to get final design. This is a multi-year project. Signing this does not say we're finalizing the project completely. There will be other decisions along the way. This just begins moving the ball forward, or continues moving the ball forward with the next phase. And this allows us to begin that final design process, which is going to take probably close to a year for some buildings, a couple of years for the jail itself, but a year as we look at the parking ramp, as we look at the 911 facility. And so this just moves us forward, and it's a not to exceed contract, and costs will be incurred as the project continues over the next 4 or 5 years, up potentially. Any questions?
Any questions for Corey? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve item 9.
So moved.
A motion by Commissioner West. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gamache. And we will now engage in further discussion. Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So with this, now with the design process, I mean, I know that there's a focused group that is, working closely with all of this, but as far as the board, when are we going to be looped in terms of the progress or stops of like what is our opinion of X, Y, and Z?
Corey.
I'm going to look to Joel Dunning from Old Architects, if you want to maybe tell us how that works. I'll have him.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm Joel Dunning with Wold Architects and Engineers. A typical design process is broken up into at least 3 different phases before the bids are procured and awarded for construction. There's a schematic design phase, design development phase, and then construction documents that's really finalizing the blueprints and specifications. It's very typical to at least go to our owners, the elected bodies, at the conclusion of all those phases to get a nod that we're going in the right direction before we commence the next stage of design. There are certainly clients of ours where we have more frequent inputs and updates of how the design progress is going. And there's also some clients that don't want to meet but one time to approve going out to bid. So it's really up to local values, but those three stages are the most typical.
Thank you, Joel. Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just for follow-up, and you guys already know this about me, but I think like for myself, there's a happy medium. Certainly, you guys have your job to do, and so I trust your expertise. And at the same time, a project like this is huge, and so I want to make sure that I am aware of what's happening and really well informed, and not necessarily at the very end of the day, and in 15 minutes I have to make this multi-million-dollar decision. So again, a happy medium I think would be great, is what I would advocate for personally, but we'll see how that works.
Thank you, Commissioner Meisner. I'll next go to Commissioner Reinert.
Yeah, so I guess I would argue that this vote and the next vote, number 9 and number 10, really does greenlight the project, because we're spending $18 million and we're, it's planned, specs, I mean, it's everything. Of course, we could, at the end of all that, say no, but then we would have wasted $18 million. And if we decide to do something else along the way, it's money being wasted. So I believe, in good due diligence and a good process. And I understand that that these projects have been talked about for 4 years, I guess, long before I was here. But I have been a part of the conversation, the important part of the conversation, where you build up to a decision. We did spend $40,000, I think it was, to get some recommendations. Those reports were given to us on October 1st. And what we asked for was several options for each of these projects: the jail ramp, 911 center, and workhouse. And so that was just 11 days ago. And although this has been talked about for 4 years, we've now just received 11 days ago the information that we needed to really have that conversation. The thing that would have really helped me is if I would have gotten that report prior to the October 1st workshop. I didn't have any way to prepare for that workshop. Basically, it showed up and, we're given the information. And then, of course, later I'm reading through the report and seeing a lot of things, having a lot of questions, and then, of course, not having the ability to ask those questions, get answers. And so it's a little difficult for me to vote for items 9 and 10 today because I have unanswered questions. And this does greenlight the project. And so I think what I'd like to do is have more of a thoughtful process here. And I'd like to make a motion to postpone items 9 and 10 to a future date after when the board can convene for another workshop to discuss this a little bit more and get some more answers to questions that maybe I have and maybe others have as well. This isn't something I think that we want to rush. Of course, some would argue a 4-year process isn't rushing it, but we really did just get the information we need to have a real good discussion 11 days ago. So I don't think anyone should take my comments as I'm against these projects, that I don't understand the need for improvement in all these areas. I just want, like I said, a more thoughtful process and do good due diligence and have a good process. So at the end, I can say to anybody that asks me that this was the right thing to do, name 5 reasons why, and completely defend our decision. So it's a lot of money. We're talking about $250, $300 million. So I'd make that motion to postpone 9 and 10 to a future date when we can fit in another work session for discussion.
There's a motion before us. I'm going to turn to Attorney Palumbo for a comment here, I think.
This motion is a priority motion. It's not debatable, or it does require a second.
Understood. There's a motion before you. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to postpone this to a date uncertain. There's no further discussion allowed. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. We're going to have to roll call that because I didn't get all the votes.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look,
On the motion.
On the motion, aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte,
Nay.
Commissioner Meisner,
Nay.
Commissioner Gamache.
Nay.
That fails on a 3-3 vote, and we will therefore postpone item 9 and 10 to a date uncertain. And I believe that concludes today's meeting.
Mr. Chair,
No.
Commissioner Look.
the postponement failed.
Postponement failed.
3.
I kind of like.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I kind of like their.
I do like the read that he had there, yeah.
I misinterpreted that. You're right.
So,
The motion failed, therefore it is before us, item 9 and 10. I'll turn to
9 is, anyway.
I'd like
first.
to move that we accept Commissioner Schulte's first interpretation of the vote.
I will turn to Commissioner Gamache next.
Thank you. And I had some questions, and because we didn't have an opportunity to have questions with that, that's why I voted as I did. Because I want to know the situation, a couple issues. Like, first of all, what would a delay do? What would that cause, timing-wise, anything like that? That is a simple question, I would think, but it's one I would have liked to had before I voted one way or another, so that's why I voted as I did. I was hoping Corey could have answered that one.
Yeah.
Corey.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gamache, Commissioners. So obviously, as we delay, if, a delay could be 3-6 months, you're going to add millions of dollars in costs to the project. That's just a fact of what we're dealing with construction. One thing I do want to correct is, yes, there's a point that, does this greenlight the project or not? And just because you do the 13 million is a not to exceed. The schematic design phase is a small portion of this. And if there's check-ins, as Commissioner Meiser had mentioned at each one, and the board says, okay, we're not moving forward with this, you're not going to spend the whole 13 million. You only spend what you spend up to that. So until construction documents are actually done, until actual bids are accepted, there is not an expenditure, and you will not expend anywhere close to the whole 13 million. Because this is a long process. It's a 4 to 5 year process. One of the ideas here is to keep the ball moving because there's a lot of information, there's a lot of work going on. And if we don't do that, we will add costs. And if we delay 6 months, 12 months, you're probably 10 to 20 million in additional cost to the project at the end of the day. And that's just a fact of what we're dealing with in construction. It's hard to say. I don't know if I misspoke on the 10 to 20 million, but it's hard to say with construction costs and where they're going. There's a lot of uncertainty by doing that. So that's the thought.
Have Commissioner West next, then Commissioner Meisner and Reiner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought Commissioner Reinert's comments were very compelling to me, so I voted for his idea. But the question I have is, what you're saying makes sense, but that does not mean we cannot go forward with work sessions to hone in what we want. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I hate to be wishy-washy, but
No?
I like what he said, but I do agree that it's a problem if we don't begin to move forward, because it takes so long to make things happen.
Thank you. Before I go to Commissioner Meisner, I just want to make sure the public understands that we did have 2 jail studies, one in 2017 commissioned by the sheriff and one in 2020 commissioned by this county board. And we all got those reports when they were done, and that was a long time ago. I mean, 2020 doesn't sound like a long time ago, but I've had both those reports, and we all got them in our drop boxes. They're electronic, and they're massive, and we had those reports for a long time. So that wasn't new information. The new information we got 11 days ago is how we would finance this if we chose to do it, how we would pay for it, and kind of a layout of where we thought they might go on our campus. That was really the new information. The old information was the jail information, the 911, well, not the 911, that was kind of new information, but the jail was mostly, the correctional facility stuff was what was in the jail studies that we've all had for quite some time. So the new information, again, is financing and where do we build them? How do we stage this building? That was kind of the new information. That was just for the edification of all our viewers. Commissioner Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Reinert, for expressing your, your questions. I think that's great. I obviously voted to move this forward because this is a need, and so to greenlight it and to not delay for costs. However, what I do wholeheartedly agree with Commissioner Reinhardt is that to have the information, and I've said this at every work session since I've been a commissioner, please give me the information prior to the work session so I can study and prepare. And then I think the study that you're talking about in our Dropbox, I got a hard copy and it was probably in our Dropbox at some point, but I don't think it was in our Dropbox currently until Commissioner Reinhardt requested it. And I could be wrong about that, but again, it's just about all this information and making sure that we have access to it and reminders of where we can find it, because, right, we all get a ton of information, and so if we don't know where to look for it, we can't prepare. So I think we can just do better in that regard.
Yeah, as a point of clarification, it was a hard copy that we all got in the first round.
Correct.
And then I did request a digital copy because I like to be able to not carry around a big binder and study it wherever I'm at on my laptop. So I do prefer the digital Dropbox version, but, and once it's in your Dropbox, you're the only one that takes it out. So
Right.
you just need to search for it if you know it's in there. Otherwise, we did get that hard copy of the jail studies. Commissioner Reiner, you are next.
Yeah, just a couple comments. I do disagree with staff on this a little bit. This does greenlight the project. I disagree that a delay is going to cost us $20 million. That's humorous. I was asking for maybe a 30-day delay. I think we could have gotten a work session in within 30 days, and then it would be back on the table for a vote. So a scary prediction of a $20 million cost for a short delay to talk about this more for another 90 minutes, I didn't think was very reasonable. But I do agree with Commissioner West that, however this vote goes, I think we should schedule another work session and have that work session and talk about this more.
Thank you, Commissioner Reiner. But in defense of staff, Corey wasn't referring to a 30-day delay for a work session. He was saying if you take it out a year, you're talking that much for a construction cost index escalation.
In reference to my request.
I don't think so. I think it was just in reference to, the question was, what does a delay cost us? And nobody gave a time frame, so he threw out a couple. I don't think he was referring to your specific delay. Commissioner Reiner. Commissioner West.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if anyone's been listening. Well, we all are listening to what's going on in this world today. And this morning they were discussing the cost of the container, just the container that people who ship products to us went from $2,000 for the container to $20,000. So sometimes when the argument is, oh, the inflation, and we've been talking this since I've been on this county board, is if everything we wait for is going to cost more because of inflation. Today, I do believe what they're saying because we get so much of what we use for everything we do in this country from other countries. I do believe it's going to be a huge increase the longer we wait.
Thank you. Before I go to Commissioner Look, I just want to make one more comment on if we approve this is one more step towards doing these projects. There's no question about that. However, if a month from now, we look at a document, we look at the economy, this 18th wave of COVID hits, whatever it is, we can stop instantly and we spend maybe $28,000 in that time period. We don't spend the $13 million. You can pull the pin on this project any way along. This is simply engaging a contract for what's listed there, the schematics, but we can stop that. If we change our mind, we have, until we go out for bid and accept a bid, we can change our mind. And granted, every day that goes by, you're spending more money. But if we approve this today, we're not saying we're building and we're not saying we're building next year. But we are saying we are recognizing the need and committing to it. And I understand not everybody's on that page yet. Commissioner Look, and then back to Commissioner Reiner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to say that my comments do not reflect on Wold Architects and they don't reflect on ICS. I think they're both fantastic companies. We've worked with them on many projects. They've done good work for Anoka County. And certainly with any project, I would consider them a contender, a valuable contender for the work that we do here. But let me be clear that we've not really come before the public in a discussion on this topic that I'm aware of. We've had work sessions or behind the scenes conversations or whatever. And it's not really been a debated topic in public like we're having right now. Okay. Let me be real clear also in saying that I'm still not comfortable with the project. And this is I agree with Commissioner Reiner, this is a green light move that I would use the term pot committed, that you pretty much have to go forward if you're going to commit these type of dollars to this type of evaluation. I'm chair of facilities and maintenance construction, and we've had a lot of discussions about the jail, a lot of discussions about the parking ramp. We've had discussions about 911. We've had discussions about where they can move and some of the costs associated with that. We have had significant dollars put into jail, millions of dollars put into the jail. We've had probably close to millions put into the parking ramp. We've had discussions about the parking ramp about what do you want to do with it? Do you want to keep it or do you want to tear it down? If you want to keep it, you need to do this every single year in terms of investment. If you want to tear it down, then don't put a penny into it and let it kind of degrade to the point that you do take it down. So there are options for keeping the parking ramp. There are options for keeping the jail. And essentially, the part that bothers me the most about this is that the $250 million to $300 million is more debt in one decision than our predecessors on this board came up with cumulatively. Okay? Cumulatively. When I came in here in 2011, there was $190 million in debt, and that took them years to acquire $190 million in debt. They bonded twice a year, every year, and they still were only at $190 million in debt. This is $250 million. Okay, this is a serious deal. This is, just to draw a comparison, North Star was a $300 million project in which the federal government paid the majority of it. And this is more than North Star, in which Anoka County will pay 100% of it. Okay? This is a problem. I'm just reflecting on this whole conversation and trying to decide what's the best course of action here. The only outcome I could come up with is that the impact that this is going to have on our residents, residential property is going to see a $300 to $500 probably increase in their property taxes every year. Commercial industrial, I can't even begin to imagine what the thousands of dollars will be for them. But I think they need to have a say in this. I absolutely think that they need to have a say in this. And it is not irresponsible of this board to put a question on a ballot and say, do you want to spend $250, $300 million on public safety in the county? And it would buy these following items. School boards do it all the time. They allow people the opportunity to vote on it. If they want to increase their taxes to cover these things, vote yes. If you don't, vote no. I think that's a reasonable thing at this point. Perhaps one of the options is, everyone knows we're a quarter-cent sales tax county. Every other county that I'm aware of out there is a half-a-cent sales tax county. They voted to increase the sales tax by a quarter cent. Perhaps that's a funding mechanism for this, that people will say, I'm willing to pay a quarter cent more sales tax as a funding scenario for this project that has a sunset date on it, that essentially will cover some of these expenses. And keep in mind, sales tax isn't always paid by Anoka County residents. People passing through Anoka County, buying things are paying sales tax, and a certain percentage of that is paid by people outside this county. And so that's a reasonable possibility for doing this rather than ramming this through with we're just gonna take out a lot of levy on this, or a lot of debt and have to pay for it with levy. Now, I want to get into the more uncomfortable part of this conversation, and that is that I've read our jail reports. I've read the fact that we're receiving 90 to 100% ratings on our jail inspections. Okay, and I say, okay, I thought we had to tear this place down. How are we getting 90 to 100% ratings on our jail inspections if we need to tear this thing down? Okay. Then I've heard, well, there's, the Department of Corrections really hasn't communicated things. They haven't written things down. They would have, but, they understand that we're kind of working towards the jail, so they're kind of keeping things off the public record. And I think to myself, could this possibly be true? Could it possibly be true that we have a state or federal agency that is withholding information that's absolutely critical to decision makers, especially in Anoka County here sitting around this table? That we wouldn't have that information to be able to make a decision such as this, that we need a new $250 million project. Would that be something that should be left off? I find that extremely hard to believe. And then I find it even further hard to believe that these people are unidentified. And I've asked for, where is the shutdown notices? Where is the authority from the different departments saying, if you don't do this or if you don't do that, we're going to shut you down? And that's reasonable. That's reasonable. To say, if you haven't fixed this or you haven't fixed that. I sit on chair of facilities. We have fixed many things from cameras to locks to the nerve center to millions of dollars we put into this jail. And does that still stand now? Do those critiques still stand? We're not even told that. Okay? But we need a new jail. We need to spend $250 million. People, it's $250 million. This should absolutely not be taken lightly. It should not be ramrodded through. If it takes 6 months to a year, then it takes 6 months to a year to make this decision. At any rate, I'm kind of in a little bit of a disbelief right now. There are serious questions that are out there, and these questions absolutely have to be answered before I could ever get behind a project like this. And I'm not even talking about voting for it. I'm talking about supporting it, let alone voting for it.
Commissioner Reiner.
Referendum, there's a new idea. Sales tax, new idea. I probably wouldn't support that one though, because once you put it in, it never goes away, even after the project's paid for, typically. And then more discussion on those reports. Would have been all good things I guess we could have talked about at that work session that I was wanting to delay for. With this green light, the architects are going to begin work on, what it was talked about 11 days ago. And so, we can, talk about having another work session and changing our mind and going in a different direction. And if we were to do that, though, it's going to waste money because we're going to vote for this, and it's going to give the green light to the architect to begin work and begin to spend money. And so, like I said, I like due diligence. I like a good process. And before I tell people to start spending money, I'd kind of like it to be what we all, just I guess so that we all understand that we've had a good process and can defend the decision. And at this point, I can't. So I'll probably vote no today. I will vote no today on this on that reasoning. But also, I'd also like to ask, what is the cost of each stage or each phase?
Commissioner Reinhardt, Mr. Chair, are you talking the architect contractual cost?
Yeah, there was discussion by representatives from all that there's many different phases along the way, and there's going to be reports back to us. And I'd just kind of like to know as we go through this, this phase is obviously $18 million, and I'd like to know what the cost or estimated cost of each one of those phases is.
Okay, Commissioner Reinhardt, in your packet, on the schematic design phase, which is the first phase that was talked about by Joel Dunning of Wold, that's going to run you about 1.7 million. Okay, for all facilities, if we are working on all facilities at that time. If we're only concentrating on 911 or the parking ramp, for instance, because those are the first two in the scheme of things, it may be less. So.
Well, this is identified as phase 2, and it's
Well,
$18 million.
This is phase 2. 13 million is the full contract to move forward. But if you break it down about what they're going to spend in the next piece, and that Joel had brought up was schematic design, design development, and that breakdown is in your packet. And the purpose is that's what they'll spend when they get to that point. So if we get to schematic design, you say we're done. You're about, that 1.8 million potentially.
So you're talking about pieces of this 13.5?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Have Commissioner Meisner next and Commissioner Gamache.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm going to start out with what I 100% agree with Commissioner Look with his comments, which is a community engagement piece. So at the workshop, I was the commissioner that said, question, are we doing something like that? And then advocated for that. These are public dollars. So whether that means, I did not advocate for a referendum. What I did say is we should have an opportunity to have community give their input, or at the very least, we are informing the public about our plans. So Commissioner Look, if you would like to work with me and Rhonda and Erica of what that looks like, I think that's great. Some of your other comments, and again, this is the same type of comments that we had in the actual work session. Debt is a tool, and I know that your lens is very much the bottom line, but it can't only be the bottom line. Our job is to comply with mandates. It's to empower our staff so they can do their job, and ultimately our job is to serve the community. So the idea that we have to actually get to a standard of getting shut down, that's not excellence. That's not what the public and our community deserve. We are obligated to do the best that we can by our community. This is public safety. Do I like spending this money? It makes me, I take it very seriously, which is why I like to be prepared and make sure that I'm understanding what I'm voting for and supporting. But the idea of not doing anything because it costs money is unrealistic. Debt is a tool. And this is the cost of business, and our business is about people, serving people. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Meisner. I'm going to go to Commissioner Gamache and then to the sheriff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do agree partially with what Commissioner Look mentioned, is that we do need to have some discussion about this, because I think there's a lot of people out there that don't understand exactly what it is. First of all, what it is that we're talking about as a whole, but also what it is that we have to do as far as placing a jail somewhere within the county. Matter of fact, I didn't know that we had to place the jail within where your county seat is. So that means we have to place it in the city of Anoka. As most people that live in the city of Anoka realize, is that there's not a lot of open space for a new jail to go in. So when we're starting to talk about what do, you start figuring out what do you have on site where we currently have the jail, and that's a parking ramp. It's a parking ramp that, as Commissioner Look had mentioned, has a lot of money's been spent to keep that parking ramp going, and there's going to be more money spent to keep that parking ramp going because it's getting old. So you begin to discuss, well, why don't we put the jail where the parking ramp is? Tear down the parking ramp. Well, that adds to the costs. But that's what came to us, and the plan was, here's what you do. You take down the jail, or excuse me, you take down the parking ramp, then you build the jail. Maybe you take up the other parking lot that's across the street from the current parking ramp because you want to expand the jail because we have DOC reports that we need to expand the jail. And then you build a new parking ramp. So yes, there's more money being spent. So those are things the public doesn't realize until you sit down and talk with them at a golf tournament somewhere and you begin to discuss what's happening. And then they go, oh, okay, I can understand that. Because they understand that there are certain rules and regulations that we have to follow. rules and regulations regarding the, our 911 building that's going to be, that we would plan to build over in Andover perhaps. That needs to have some structure from, there's federal guidelines, and that building has to be built in some fashion to protect it. So that's something that adds to the cost of everything. And now I do not disagree with his half-cent sales tax idea, because it is out there and we're not using it, and other counties around the state are using it. So we could have that. But one of the reasons that you bond for something that's going to last you for 30, 40, 50 years, perhaps into the future, is because your population's going to grow. And as your population grows, those are the people that are going to use those facilities. Hopefully not a lot of them will use the jail, but you know, that's what it's for, is as your counties grow and as your cities grow, you have more people coming in. And it should not be just on the backs of those that are here today. It should be spread out in a bonding, because you're going to have more population and you're going to have more people coming in, and they should pay for it in the future. And that's why we bond. That's why we talk about it. And right now, bonding is a really good financial tool because the rates are low. They have been low for a number of years. So we've had discussion now since, I believe, the first jail report was 2017. So it's been going on, you know, for 5 years almost now that this discussion has been going on. And yes, did we get the details of what we're talking about so that we can start looking at how to bond this and how to do this? Yes, we did. Should we maybe have another workshop? Absolutely. I don't disagree with that at all. And I think then we could move this forward. But we do have to move this forward because I think there are some important questions that have been brought up, and I'm glad they've been brought up here in the public. And I look forward to hearing from the sheriff, and I will end my.
Thank you, Commissioner Gamache. Before I go to the sheriff, and then I got Commissioner Meisner after the sheriff, I just want to remind people that if we decide we want to do a sales tax, we got to get state legislative approval to do that. We can't just put a sales tax in. And it wouldn't have anything to do with the current transportation sales tax that's out there. It would have to be a whole new sales tax. And I'm not sure about a referendum. If we went to a referendum on a jail, I'm not sure if we need legislative approval to do that or not. But that, again, it's a big step, and it's us saying we don't think we have the authority to do that. We want the public to weigh in before we make the decision. But that's just a couple of the financing tools that were talked about. I thought I would clarify real quickly. We're going to go to the sheriff, and then I got Commissioner Meisner, and then Commissioner Look.
Well, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. For the record, my name is James Stewart, and as I always say, because it is absolutely meant, it's my honor to serve as the sheriff of Anoka County, and thank you for this morning in this discussion. Let me start by saying I don't disagree with anything that's been said. Communication, effective information, all of those things are going to be very important. We've talked for years about the element of the public information side of things, and so I certainly would expect that our team would work with the county's team in what that communication and what that outreach effort looks like. Quick historical perspective, you know, most of you know I'm in my 11th year, I'm in my 3rd term, and when I first took office, I thought it was important that I grasp a better knowledge of the areas of the office that I didn't know previously. And I'd never worked in our jail division, so I tried to spend a lot of time, and I walked every inch of the jail and began to realize, oh my goodness, we have some serious issues here. And I even began discussions with facilities about some of the specific concerns that I was hearing from staff. And be mindful, a lot of our command staff within the jail have worked at the national level and are certified inspectors, et cetera. So I trust that they are true experts in this arena. And based on what they started telling me, my concerns started going up. I had been to many sheriff's schools, and they tell us that nationally, the single largest liability for a county is in the jail. And so I see it as my responsibility to mitigate and manage that so that the county doesn't find ourselves in a bad place. As I began learning more about the jail, if you recall, some of you recall about a decade ago, I wanted to ensure that my partners, my elected colleagues, were also in the loop on some of these things. And so we offered up tours, we offered up informational sessions, and we really began the discussions at a high-level conceptual, discussion. And so it was at that point, again, nearly a decade ago, that I would say these talks actually began. And then As time moved on, we all began to realize the issues were real. We had two different independent national firms come in and assess the concerns. Managing, again, a lot of it was about the liability, and trying to ensure that we are providing the best possible services while also safeguarding the safety of not just staff, but the inmates. And so as those studies were completed, the county then established several different work groups. And those work groups of staff come from a variety of different disciplines as well. And so as I look at it as I don't have all the answers, but I think effective leadership is trusting professionals who can come in and weigh in on all of these different areas from a variety of different groups at different times and tell us what our needs are. And I feel that that's been done rather effectively. And I understand the dollar amounts, I understand the communication, and I completely agree with the fact that this is a very big deal and we do need to have the questions answered. And to that point, you all should have my cell phone number. I don't want you to have questions that are unanswered. 24/7, if something's on your mind, please call. And if I don't have the answer, I will find it. And I hope we've established that in the past as well. I remain committed to being a good partner and to be able to answer those questions. And like I said, even if I have to reach out to other entities to find the answer, we'll get you the answers you're looking for. However, we also know that this is something that's been underway for, like I said, loosely for a decade and aggressively for at least 4 years. So I think to say that we haven't done our due diligence is slightly inaccurate, but nonetheless, I understand that there's still questions remain, and we're happy to continue to bring those forward as we continue to, we have an outstanding team every day in that jail managing liability and doing the best that they can with a facility that was designed for literally half of the inmates that are allocated for it, and working within an infrastructure that is radically undersized and outdated. So I would just ask that we give strong consideration to that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Stewart. Commissioner Meisner.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. You know what, I just forgot one point when I originally spoke. So Commissioner Look had given an example, I don't know, it was $300 to $500 of increase in property taxes. And I just want to argue that I think that's impossible for any of us to predict. We do have funding options and it's fluid. So today, if we were going to predict when this would actually shake down for residents, we can't do that. So I would say none of us can do any type of dollar amount. So I just want the public to be aware of that's, I would say, an untrue statement, meaning none of us could make a statement today to predict that. Thank you.
Commissioner Look.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Meisner, I think when you serve on city council and you have projects that you work on where you spend millions of dollars, you start to have a kind of an understanding of impact. And that's perhaps something you don't share because you never served on a city council before. That's where I'm kind of drawing from this experience of what this will probably land at. You can't say I'm wrong. It could be more. It might be less. But we don't know that. And so I'm kind of saying, well, I've seen public works facilities. I've seen municipal centers built in the city I served in for significant millions of dollars. And yes, it does impact greatly. Okay. So lots of different points to make here. From a community input standpoint, quarter-cent sales tax, you're right, Mr. Chair, we may need to go to the state legislature for this. We've gone to the state legislature for public safety levy dollars. We can certainly go to the state legislature for this and say, hey, can you support a public safety measure for us in this capacity because the people want that, or they have a referendum for that. There are vehicles to do this. And it's not that we don't have the authority to do this. We can have the authority to levy this and 10 times more than this if we so choose. We have that authority. But we also need to have the respect of the people that are out there who are going to be paying these bills and understanding that, this is right on the heels of October 15th here. Tax day, people are cutting checks trying to figure out how they're going to pay for their taxes. And we're talking about doubling down on them here. I think it's maybe a little disrespectful, but nevertheless, I move on. As far as information goes, I've asked for this information from the DOC, the proof. I want the proof. that this facility is going to get shut down if we don't build a new one. That's what I want. I want a trigger statement that says from someone on authority, from the Department of Corrections, that if this facility continues to operate, okay, we're going to have to shut it down and you're going to need to build a new one. Okay? That's what I want to see. I've asked for it. I have not received it. All I've received are the reports, again, where we have a 90 to 100% approval rating. Of course, this costs money. It costs money to keep this jail going. It costs, I forget the amount for this jail, 130 million, is it, or more? What was the breakdown? 250 total, parking ramp and everything else. Anyways, significant money, and we're told that our jail operates inefficiently and has liability, and all jails have liability. I have friends who are in jails elsewhere that are newer facilities, and they have liability. It's the nature of the beast. And so the reality is that when you boil it down to inefficiency, it costs more money, essentially, for more staff to operate these facilities. I understand that. That's clear to me. But is it really $130 million worth of inefficiency? On the scale, where's the return on investment here? Okay. Have we looked at an expansion of this jail as an option? I'm not sure that we've done that. I've not seen any information on that. Have we considered the fact that down at the state legislature today, they're talking about legalizing marijuana? Okay, how many of the inmates do we have in there that have marijuana-related offenses? How many people are gonna come out of there because of that? I have no idea, I can't answer that question. I raise the question because I think it might impact the inmates that we have. So, and perhaps inmate isn't the right word, I forget what the new technical word is. But essentially, 10 years ago, we started this discussion about liability. Sheriff, I agree with you. I was here, I came on board with you at the same time. And there's talk of liability. That's a concerning topic. And have we had that liability? Has that come to fruition? Have we had instances where we haven't made corrections to cameras or locks or whatever the case was to try and, prevent liability from happening? I think we have made those investments. I think we've limited liability as much as possible on this. I think any facility is going to have a percentage of liability. And, that kind of speaks to the inmates. So there's inmates in there that consider it, a badge of honor to try and hurt somebody. Okay? I'm not sure you can get over that level of liability, short of absolute confinement somewhere in a room that they never get out of, and they never really see anyone. We pass food to them underneath an opening of some sort. I just don't think you can avoid that type of liability. So at any rate, it's a discussion that I think the people need to be engaged in. I think that we need to bring it before the people. They need to decide if this is what's important to them. And if they vote and say, yep, this is what we want, great, proceed. If they don't, well, that's their choice.
Thank you, Commissioner Look. Sheriff, did you have a comment on the DOC and their inspections? I saw you moved. I thought perhaps you
I
had some.
certainly can. I just wanted to be ready, Mr. Chair. Quick response. The DOC looking for the hard document saying they're going to shut us down. You'll never see that. We get a lot of the veiled commentary and concerns from the inspectors, but as has been said, it doesn't mean it always ends up in the reports. The other thing to note with the 90% ratings, a lot of this, it's operational. That's what they're evaluating. And so we have staff that are just shy of magicians, in my opinion, in their professional standards that they're bringing to the table and making the absolute most out of a very difficult situation. And at the core of this, certainly the liability is a huge factor that all of us need to be mindful of. The other thing, knowing that we're moving forward, the classification. And it's hard to explain, it's hard to articulate, but most of us are familiar with the many different types of inmates that are brought in, and that's what we call classification, that need to be separated, need to be kept apart. This facility simply was not designed for it, and as those classifications continue to increase, the challenges to meet the increasing requirements for classification also continue to increase. And then, don't even get me going on COVID. Our facility is not designed for quarantine. It's not designed for medical care, quite honestly. It's not designed for mental health care. And even from something as simple as a storage room or facilities areas, facilities management type areas. It was never designed for that. It was undersized when it was built decades and decades ago, and for those who aren't familiar with the history, it should have never been built the way it was built. It was a square peg pounded into a round hole. And so I feel like a broken record when I try to praise our staff, because they really are doing miraculous things day in and day out, and they're easy to forget because they're behind the scenes and they don't even get to look out a window, so we don't get to see how miserable that environment can be. But if nothing else, wrap our head around the undersized kitchens, laundry, classification requirements, mental health, and the facility as a whole. It was not designed to meet the needs of the time, much less today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Stewart. Before I go to Commissioner Gamache, then Reinhardt, I just want to make a couple of comments for the public's knowledge that the current jail was built in 1983, and it was designed for 140 inmates. That's not just 140 beds. I mean, that is what it was at the time. But that's the kitchen and the laundry, the health services, the booking area, the sally port. All of that was designed at the time for 140 customers, clients. That later was changed some years later to double bunk a number of those rooms, which you think would make 280 inmates. It really doesn't, because there's so many classifications, as the sheriff just listed. So it really brought it up to, I believe, 238 was the reasonable number of inmates that we can expect to house at any one time. I want to remind you that we had 205,000 residents in Anoka County when that was built. We currently have 363,887. So that's a huge increase in the number of citizens. I like to think most of them are law-abiding and won't see our jail, but we know that the percentage of people that wind up in jail from the population generally doesn't change. So the more people you have in your county, the more people you're going to have in your jail, providing the judiciary or the state laws don't change where we incarcerate less people, which has already been brought up as a area in flux. We also, in 2018 and 2019, spent over $1 million in each of those years boarding out prisoners because we didn't have functional space within our own jail. We boarded them both at Sherburne County and Wright County until Sherburne County said, hey, COVID just hit, we can't take your people anymore. So then we make the longer drive to Wright County and board out more people. So it is an additional cost. It's one that we were willing to bear because we had no choice. We don't believe in releasing people to the public that are dangerous, so we're going to keep them one way or another, even if we have to pay to board them out. And before I turn to Commissioner Gamache for his comments, I want to liken this to something I do every day, and that's work on cars. I'm on our 4th generation of customer now at our shop that I've taken over from my father, so we see a lot of people, and we see a lot of cars come and go. But the one thing that I beg of people, when you buy a car, bring it to me. Let me look at it before you buy it, because I can tell you if the frame is rusting through. I can tell you if this thing isn't going to last. Or we have the customer that buys the car brand new and drives it for 25 years. And in that 24th year, we look at them and say, you know what? We've been putting $1,000 a year into this, fixing brakes and fuel tanks and whatever rusts out. But now it's the frame. It's a major structure. And the car's starting to move around, the engine's shifting in the chassis, it's causing more damage. At some point, there's such structural problems that it's not worth the fix anymore and it's time to move on. I feel that way with our jail and our parking ramp. It's the other thing I really want to punctuate is we talk about $250 million, $250 to $300 million. It's a ton of money, but we aren't talking about just a jail. This is a 911 emergency communications center. It's a new parking ramp, which is way past its normal lifespan and failing more and more every day. And it's an expansion at the workhouse to become more efficient out there and reduce our footprint in another campus where we're trying to reduce our footprint. Now, there's a lot of nuances here, and I just brought in a bunch of other stuff into this conversation that could drag it down, and I don't want that to happen. I want everybody to remember that we're simply amending a contract here to have our architects continue to work on a possible plan moving forward. It commits $13 million if we continue through the whole process. If we stop in a month, we don't spend that money. I want that to be clear. We are not pot committed. We can back out of this deal if we decide we're going to change our mind. I just wanted to get some of those statistics out there about the jail, about the parking ramp. Our 911 center, we haven't talked much about that, but it's buried in the bowels of this building. No light, no decent ventilation. And we have spent quite a bit of money down there trying to improve that environment, but we've run out of space. That likewise was built when we had a lot less employees. They can no longer social distance. They can't get away to a break room. Every room has been programmed for 911 dispatch. And it's an untenable situation. It's hard on the mental health of our employees, and it's hard on morale. So this is another step. I mean, this is multiple years of discussions are coming to this table today. Some people that are newer to the board may not have been privy to all these conversations. Some of us have been here through all of this and more deeply involved than others. So I don't mean to sound frustrated that commissioners have questions. I don't mean to sound frustrated that we're kind of tapping the brakes a little bit, because this is a huge expense. It'll be the biggest expense of my political career, and that's 2 decades. But do I think it's important? I think it's important that we have the discussion. I want your questions answered, but I think we can do both. I think we can approve this, we can approve number 10, and we can still have those workshops, take the jail tours that we all want to take, that we're promised we're going to, and we can still move forward. We can do both. So with that, I'm going to check my conversation at this point. I'm going to go to Commissioner Gamache next, and then to Commissioner West.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Those are some really, really good points. I think that really kind of laid it out as the population of this county has grown and what's changed, and I think that was well said. We do have only 6 commissioners here today, which means if you get to a 3-3 vote at whatever, I'm not sure if you want to take that into consideration on waiting until Commissioner Brasted is here, perhaps on the 26th. That was my suggestion, maybe that we have that, and in the meantime, if we decide to table and we have the discussion, and in the next week, we have workshop sessions set up where staff can get questions from all the county commissioners, have that all to the staff so that they have the information that they need to get back to us at those meetings so that we can be efficient and get through them and get all those questions answered. I don't know if Corey's got an idea of what the difference between passing this today and passing this on the 26th perhaps would mean, but I just thought because of the 3-3, it can be difficult to get a vote.
And I've already demonstrated my skill set challenge when it comes to 3-3 votes.
Thank you.
Admittedly so. I will turn to Commissioner West next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't think about it that deeply, all the questions that I don't have answered, but I'd like to go forward with the motion I made, if I may. And I think we need to entertain all kinds of the things that have been addressed here, particularly the funding. But I do think that we have had many years, this conversation's probably started when I came on, so I don't know if my motion is canceled or it's not, so I'm going to go ahead and support it.
Well, there is Commissioner Reiner.
Okay, as I mentioned before, I will be voting no on this, and I don't want that to be construed as that I'm against these projects. I understand the need for some improvement on these. I just want to reiterate that. And then also, I don't know if I can do this, but it's a different motion. We've had a lot of discussion here for a long time, and not sure if everyone's still on the same page they were before, but I'd like to make a motion to postpone 9 and 10 again until November 9th, because maybe a difference of having a date certain might make a difference. And don't know if I can make another motion to postpone after I did it, but it is a different motion. I'll look to you.
Attorney Palumbo.
Generally, if you're going to renew a motion that's already been failed, you need somebody that voted on the prevailing side to make that motion. So I would suggest, Mr. Chair, that motion might be out of order. So if someone else wants to make it, who's on the prevailing, and the prevailing side would be, obviously, since the motion did fail, it was those 3 that voted in favor.
Understood. So Commissioner Reinert, it would require a motion from the 3 of us, either Commissioner Meisner, Commissioner Gamache, or myself, to reintroduce that motion back to the floor. Commissioner Meisner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then, so I guess I have a question then for Mr. Palumbo as well. So because Commissioner Gamache brought up Commissioner Brasted is absent, clearly this is a healthy discussion. And as you know, I'm always about all 7 of us being able to have a voice at the table. So I think that is a valid reason to postpone. Commissioner Reinhardt, you suggested your most recent new motion as November 9th. Would you be open to November 26th, as Commissioner Gamache had suggested, and just on our next board meeting?
Yeah, I just wanted to make it a date certain so that there's no ambiguity. And, you know, as you said, Chair, into a date uncertain. And so I think that kind of alluded to the fact that maybe even Corey's comments, well, if we delay by 3 or 6 months. So I wanted to make sure that it was going to be very soon and our next possible opportunity to vote. So yes, I would do that.
Thank you both for your comments. And to be clear, Commissioner Brasted chairs public safety and has weighed in numerous times that she's in support of all of this. She, again, wants to be engaged in the conversation and the discussion, as she will be deeply as chair of public safety. But she is the one who brought this forward. She is in full support. Delaying the vote today for her input is ill-advised. I don't think it's important at this point. She would, and has explained to me she would support this. Commissioner Look.
Mr. Chair, while she may be in support of this, it's good to have her on the record
And she will be.
with this vote.
Well, with that, there is a motion before us and a second.
No, I'm so sorry, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Meisner.
What is the current motion then? So I was just suggesting if,
Current motion on the floor is to approve item 9 as presented.
Commissioner West.
oh, I thought there was a motion to,
There is not a motion at this point to postpone.
unless it was brought up by,
It has to be somebody who voted in the
Prevailing side
prevailing side of the last motion.
to postpone.
so,
One of you three.
So,
right, so I actually would be happy to do that as long as it is just the next board meeting. So I don't know if that's the,
October 26th.
then October 26th.
so, Mr. Chair,
I would,
Motion on the floor to postpone to October 26th, this vote.
Items 9 and 10.
9 and 10.
Item 9 and 10. Is there a second?
we'll second.
I have a second by Commissioner Look. There is no discussion on this vote. We will have a roll call vote. Those in favor of postponing this to our very next board meeting of October 26th will say aye. Those opposed will say no. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Look,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
No.
Commissioner Schulte,
No.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
No.
Commissioner Reinert.
Aye.
That vote was a 3-3 vote, therefore it has failed. And the original motion is before us at this time. The motion to approve item 9. And we will have a roll call vote, seeing no further discussion.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache.
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
No.
Commissioner Look,
No.
That item passes. We'll now move on to item 10, where we'll consider approving an amendment to contract C008470 with ICS of Sauk Rapids, Minnesota for construction management services for the public safety and correctional facilities, an additional amount not to exceed $4,085,717 in fees with a maximum reimbursable amount of $4,419,732. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Meisner. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner West. Further discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Look.
Again, this does not reflect on ICS at all, as I think they're a very valuable asset to construction and management services here at Anoka County. But we're not getting into construction and management services at Anoka County for quite some time on this project. I'm wondering if this is putting the cart a little in front of the horse at this point.
I think we'll have Andrew Dykstra, our Facilities Manager, chat with us. Andrew.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Look, members of the board, my name is Andrew Dykstra, Director of Facilities Management and Construction. Thank you for your question, Commissioner Look. It is critical that when we're looking at these types of projects or any type of project, as has been proven out in the projects in the past, that we have the construction management coming alongside of us to be a part of the planning, the programming, and the design. It's critical they're a part of all of it. And as you know, Commissioner Look, it's been proven out that as they've been a part of all of that, we've had minimal change orders in terms of our projects themselves, and we have an opportunity to talk about best value. So from a construction management standpoint, they're bringing a variety of ideas to us that get plugged into the actual design piece. It's proven itself time and time again here at the county that we need this to be a part of our process.
Thank you, Andrew. Further discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
No.
Commissioner Look.
No.
That item passes. We will now move to item 11, which is part of our American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA item. We'll consider amending the policy for the allocation of $3,150,000 of ARPA dollars allocated as matching funds towards community broadband projects to allow cities not intending to use the matching grant program to pass a resolution requesting the county reallocate unused grant funds to other communities on a first-come, first-served basis. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Look. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Reinert. Just for clarification to the public, we have that pot of money set aside, $3,150,000, to give to each of our 21 communities on a matching grant type of program where they match 150, we give them 150,000. But some communities are realizing they don't need that, and they're willing to put the money back in the pot for the benefit of the counties that need more. Commissioner Look.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I have some communities that will benefit from this, certainly. And I think I'll renew my statement regarding the amount, that I think the amount is light. And I think that anytime that a city looks at trying to invest in broadband or internet to cover an area that's underserved, I believe these dollars are designed for underserved. The federal dollars were designed for underserved. So I think what we're trying to do here is establish money so that those communities that can take advantage of the federal dollars can also utilize these dollars as matching, et cetera. I think that's kind of the whole discussion here. But at any rate, you know, as we've come through COVID, as we've kind of understood the new norm, if you will, as there's been somewhat of a shift from inner city Minneapolis renting of, you know, real estate to now having people operate out of their homes. I think now more than ever, the need for broadband is ever present. And for our county to have communities in which people do not have access to high-speed internet, I think is where we need to be focusing our attention. And we've had some experience with Zayo. We've had some experience with other communities that have tried to bring these projects into their community, and the costs far exceed $150,000, far exceed. And typically, those communities that don't have a lot of resources are the ones that are underserved. And so you have a scenario in which they really can't afford to do the investments that they need to. And so I will renew my suggestion that we should have far more money invested in this to try and get those communities caught up, because their people are in the same boat that everybody else is in terms of working at home and trying to live in the new world, the post-COVID world that we live in.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Look, and I agree with you 100% that these cities need a lot more money. The good news is there are both federal and state programs directed specifically towards broadband that will be bleeding a bunch of money into our communities. And our cities are getting ARPA dollars as well, just like the county did. So there will be a lot more money available to come through to the cities. We're hoping that we acted on ours very quickly because there were some municipalities that wanted money right away. So we acted much faster than anybody else getting those dollars out there. I'm hoping it's that ultimate seed dollar that draws in those federal and state programs. And we'll be working with them. Samantha Markham, our economic development specialist, is steeped in this information and is working closely with the cities to make sure they leverage those dollars and that we land a lot more in there. I saw hands over here. Commissioner Reiner, then Commissioner
Meisner was first.
Thank you, Commissioner Reiner. Commissioner Meisner.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, yeah, you answered my question. I was just going to say, I mean, I assumed our administrator or somebody would be reaching out to cities, and then I will as well. But I'm really pleased to see this. This is literally the definition of equity and not equality. So before it was about equality, we just handed everything the same to all 21 cities. But, you know, my district is pretty solid in connectivity. I know Commissioner Look, Commissioner Brasted, they've got some real problems with connectivity, and all of Commissioner Look's comments I 100% agree with. So I'm glad to see that we have flexibility for this. And then, so you answered my question. This is going to be communicated to our cities. I will be reaching out as well. I mean, personally, I just wanted to make sure that was in place too. Thank you.
Commissioner Reiner.
Yeah, just a couple comments. Yeah, this is, to Commissioner Look's point, going to help a lot of people in my district as well, especially in the northern cities. We had some discussion here, although my motion to postpone did not succeed, although within that discussion, I think it was consensus here that we still need a work session. And so I'd ask that a work session be scheduled within the next 30 days. And then on that work session, the topic of broadband and possibly allocating more dollars for it to the suggestion of Commissioner Look. So both those things, to have a work session scheduled within the next 30 days, mostly to discuss, you know, the jail projects and et cetera. But let's add to that discussion about broadband and possibly funding more, because it is a concern. It is a light amount. The dollars we're using are from the federal government for, you know, basically COVID dollars. People working from home, needing broadband to work from home. So these aren't dollars that are going to be levied. I think that needs to be mentioned. And we have those dollars. We just need to allocate them.
Thank you, Commissioner Reiner. I will say that getting a work session scheduled in 30 days will be a real challenge. I'm going to ask commissioners to be really flexible with your schedule. If Jill or Brenda or Rhonda calls you, make sure you cancel something if you have to get into the work session, because otherwise, I mean, this is that time of year where we all start having stuff going on, you know, whether it's fundraisers or vacations or Thanksgiving and everything else that's coming up. So we may have to cancel some stuff if we really want to get this work session in 30 days. I know I'll have to, and I'm willing to do that as long as everybody else is open to that idea. Rhonda.
Mr. Chair, members of the County Board, just wanted to let you know that after the approval today, Samantha Markman will be sending out the application, some FAQs as well to the economic development folks. I will be also communicating that information with the city administrators as well. And we do actually have a group pulled together internally that will be meeting to specifically talk about what other broadband opportunities may exist as far as funding, so that as a county, we can look at working with those communities to see if we might be able to access some of those grant funds in working in partnership on their behalf, because there are dollars at the federal level, there are dollars coming through at the state level, and if we can maximize the investment that we have here by having this even be the match, that puts us in a much better spot in trying to access some of those funds as well.
Thank you, Administrator Silveraja. Commissioner Look.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I fully support that. I think we need to maximize federal and state and whatever other dollars are available. I just know that some of these projects are more expensive than even those dollars are. And getting the backbone fiber or whatever, I mean, it's terribly expensive. And so I would like us to be flexible as far as what it's going to take to try and hook some of these people up.
Thank you, Commissioner Look. We do have a motion and a second before us. If there is no further discussion, we'll have a roll call vote.
Commissioner Schulte,
Aye.
Commissioner Meisner,
Aye.
Commissioner Gamache,
Aye.
Commissioner Reinert,
Aye.
Commissioner Look.
Aye.
That item passes. And that concludes our county board meeting for today. I need Trustee Look and Trustee Gamache for a HRA Management Committee meeting in